Welcome back, everybody. As I announced earlier, we're super excited to have Sandy Carter here with us today. She is Vice President of Windows and Enterprise Workloads at Amazon Web Services. And let's give her a big warm welcome and a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Let's see. So can you guys hear me okay? Yes? How is South by Southwest going so far? Good? Okay. Well, I wanted to share with you guys today some of the mechanisms that we use at Amazon Web Services around customer obsession. And as you think about customer obsession, a lot of it is really about innovation. And innovation sometimes means you get things right, and sometimes means that you have to try a couple things and experiment and then get things right. So I have 2 daughters. And every Sunday we make pancakes. Anybody else have traditions like that in their family? So it's really interesting because my daughters brought me this picture and they said, "Mom, can you make these pancakes for us?" And I said, "Of course I can make those pancakes for you, right? This looks quite easy to do." And so I did. This is what they look like. Oops, wow. Let's see here. There we go. So they weren't perfect, but there was a couple of lessons learned here. First, this could be considered an MVP because it was edible. It was kind of usable. It just wasn't pretty. The end user interface needed some work. Secondly, I listened to my customers, who were my daughters, and said, this is what they want, and that's what I made them. That's part of what I want to talk about today, is how you get to that real customer obsession with whatever you're creating. So Thomas kicked us off with serverless. Serverless is one of the hottest new areas, but it's never just about the technology. Whether that's containers or serverless or machine learning, it's always about what your customer is looking for. Now, when we talk about customer service and customer obsession, let's see. There we go. We believe that the cloud really does embrace that customer obsession. Cloud enables us to move much faster. So if you think about what AWS has done, is it's not just to unleash technology, but it unleashes agility and the time to market and your customer experience. So if you're an entrepreneur, I don't know, are any of you guys entrepreneurs? Yes, okay. So as an entrepreneur, if you think about it, about 7 years ago, the stats showed that if you looked at how much money an entrepreneur spent on IT and infrastructure, it was about 80% of his or her funding. But today it's only about 20% because everybody's using the cloud. So it really helps you with that time to market and that customer experience area, which is really important. Am I doing that, guys, or is that, do I need to do something differently? Do you want me to do the handheld? Is that easier? Yeah? Okay. No worries. Let me just make sure. Okay. Ooh, that's better. Okay, great. Do you want me to start over? No, I'm going to start over. So if you think about customer obsession, one of the first questions that everyone asks me is, isn't everybody customer obsessed? I've worked for lots of different companies, and we always had customer-driven, customer-focused. There was always something about the customer. But the interesting thing about Amazon is when we say customer-obsessed, we really do mean that we are obsessed with what you, our customers, want. And that means, like, for my first project, I had to produce a new service. And so I personally spent time with over 140 customers, understanding how they were going to use it, what were they going to do with it, what problem were they really trying to solve. We built a couple of MVPs just to test some things out, to see if what our customers said they wanted was what they really wanted and what they really needed. We tested out different UXs. In fact, our CEO, Andy Jassy, went through our wireframes. That's how serious we are, making sure that we solve for the customer's problem. So when we talk about customer obsession, it's not just a word, it's really the way that we live at Amazon. So what does that look like? Well, here's what it doesn't look like. So I don't know how many of you know about this product. Anybody seen this product before? I love this. So this is really cool because it's got every cool bell and whistle that you could ever imagine. This is a smart salt shaker. And this smart salt shaker has its own app. So when you want to dispense your salt, you go into your app, you push a button, and you can dispense your salt. You can dispense 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon, and it has embedded artificial intelligence. So it learns how much salt do you like in the morning versus how much salt do you put on your dinner meals. But wait, there's more. Because that device is now sitting on your dining room table, you can connect it to Alexa, and the music, instead of coming out of Alexa, will now come out of the salt shaker. And it has blinking lights, mood settings. Now, this product, if you think about it, it has IoT, machine learning. It's doing like every cool technology thing there is. But what was the one thing that they kind of forgot about? How many people want to take out their iPhone in order to distribute their salt? Raise your hand. Oh, you do? Only ingest. And so, obviously, if you think about it, this was a great piece of technology, right? They probably use serverless computing, too. I don't know. But the interesting thing is that they didn't really obsess over their customers. They obsessed over their technology, and they built something that fit all that technology, but it didn't really have a strong customer need. Now, this is an example of a product that I think is very customer obsessed. How many of you like jerky? Anybody like jerky? Okay. Anybody try this jerky called True Jerky? So my whole family, except for me, loves jerky. And they tell me that this is the best jerky ever. So I actually met with their product management team. And one of the things that they said always happened when you ate this jerky is it got stuck in your teeth. So being customer obsessed, they started working backwards from the customer, saying, how could we solve that? They tried different formulations, different sauces, different techniques for smoking it, and it still had all the problems, and customers didn't like it as well. So they decided, let's attach dental floss. So if you look up there, you see in that there's like a little button, that actually has a little bit of dental floss. So after you eat your jerky, you pull that off, and out comes your dental floss, and you can floss your teeth. Not only did customers love it, the whole concept and the way they thought of it went viral. So think about the two examples. One where technology was being used in every different way possible, and this one where the product management team was so obsessed with making sure their customer needs were met that they were trying all kinds of different things, thinking outside the box to really come up with a great idea. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah? So our primitives for customer obsession, number one is that we always work backwards from the customer. We never start with serverless or containers, even though those are super cool. Or my team just released today the preview for Kubernetes on Windows. Super cool. I mean, the team spent a lot of time working on it. But they don't start with the technology, Kubernetes, machine learning, and then I want to build something. They always start from what the customer wants and really understanding what that customer wants. Now, the way that we leverage mechanisms to do this, oh my gosh, sorry. I'm not sure why this is. There we go. The way that we look at these mechanisms is the second thing we do once we really understand the customers, and like I said, I spent time with 140 different customers on my first service, is we write a press release. Now, this may sound really strange for engineers, but what we do is we figure out what is the headline that we want customers to really know about. The first paragraph is always introduction of what you are talking about building. You're not building it yet, but you're saying this is at a high level what it will look like. The second paragraph describes what the problem is you're trying to solve. And sometimes that's kind of nebulous before you get started. And then you actually have real customer quotes in the press release. Before you write a single line of code, before you do a single design document, you have written your press release. Very different than any other company that I've been to. And writing the press release takes a lot of time, and you get input and feedback from multiple different groups and functions as well. Then the next thing that you do is you, let's see here. Yeah. You write what we call the frequently asked set of questions, FAQ. Now, when I first came to Amazon, I thought, this will be easy because I'll make up my own questions. But it's not that easy because Amazon actually gives you questions to write. So what kind of questions are in there? The first question is, what are you building? Usually, you have to also answer a question that says, if you were sitting having a beer with somebody, what would they say about your product? What would they say was so cool about it? And then the next question is, if you were having lunch with somebody and they were complaining about your product, what would they be complaining about? And the reason we do that is we want to look at what won't be there, because you can't design everything at the very beginning. So what we really want to understand is what the person's complaining about going to be so much problem that you really want to wait before you produce something? Other questions we do in this particular frequently asked questions is we do the wireframes. So I told you earlier that our CEO actually looked at some of our wireframes. And we go into details about how we would design certain features or certain functions that would come along with that particular service as well. It's very different for me than any other company I've ever worked at, where we start designing and planning and then figuring out, okay, now how is my customer going to use this product? You really know ahead of time what those use cases are. So we do these design workshops with our customers. And the last one I did, my customer was asking me, you talk about answering questions. Give me some examples of those. So I wanted to put up some of those questions because they are different as well. The first one is, who is your customer? Now, in this particular engagement I was in, when I asked my customer, who is your customer, he said, telco. Do you guys think telco is a customer? No, telco is not a customer. Telco is an industry. So a customer is the actual person that you're designing this for. Is it a developer? Is it someone in operations? Is it someone who's going to test out the product? Is it a chief marketing officer? Who is the person who's going to use whatever you're producing? Secondly, we always ask, what is the problem or the opportunity that's presented? Because sometimes people have different perspectives about what that problem or opportunity is. We look at what's the most important customer benefit, so not solving world peace, but specifically, what is the one most important thing that you're trying to solve? And then my favorite is, how do you know that this is really what the customer needs or wants? So sometimes, as you're designing something, you may interpret asking someone a question. If you really want to hear an answer, you will say, it'll come back to that answer. So we really try to dive deep and figure out, what does that customer really need? They may think they need this, but maybe if I did it this way, like the example of the jerky, right? They all said they needed a product that didn't stick in their teeth. But the way they actually solved it that made customers ecstatic was dental floss, a whole different concept. And then the last one that we really obsess on is, what is that customer experience? What is that experience like? Does this make sense so far? Okay. Okay, so a couple of examples. This is one of our customers. They're Just Eat. They're based out of the UK. Anybody know them? They've recently come to Canada. They call themselves a $5 billion startup. And what I love about them is they still act like a startup. What do? Well, they deliver food. So they partner up with restaurants, and they deliver food all over the place. So one of the things I really loved about them is that they were obsessing over their customer, and they figured out that voice is now taking over. So instead of texting orders or just submitting an order online, their customers started telling them that they wanted to use voice to order, maybe with something like Alexa. And so instead of starting with AI and saying, what can I do that's cool with AI, they started with their customer who said, I want to place these orders via voice. And so now you can go to Alexa and you can say, Alexa, have Just Eat order me a pizza. And it'll deliver from your favorite pizza place. Or, since they know me that I'm impatient, I don't like to wait. So if pizza takes an hour, they might come back, Alexa would come back and say, well, Sandy, that's going to take too long. Might we suggest sushi to be delivered in 40 minutes? So it actually learns what you like to eat and makes suggestions. It will even say, oh, well, Sandy, I know you always order Tex-Mex on Thursday night. It's Thursday. What are you doing ordering pizza? So it's really become smart and helps you to really personalize your service. Now, this is another example I love. This is Redfin. Do you guys know Redfin? Yeah? So they are an online real estate company. And what they do is they partner up with people who are buying homes and selling homes, and even the real estate agent. They've created a completely online model. And one of the features or functions that their customers told them that they needed was, what is your house worth? That's a valuable thing, right? What's your house worth? Before you sell it or before you buy it, or even if you're the real estate agent and you're listing it, you want to know what the house is worth. Now, Redfin had this idea to do this assessment, and they were going to be first to market. But as they started thinking about it and working backwards from their customer, they realized that that estimate had to be super accurate. They couldn't guess at it. Because if on Monday they said your house is worth $1 million, and then they came back and said on the next Saturday it's worth $200,000, the trust in that tool would be non-existent. And so working backwards from their customer, leveraging the buyer, the seller, and the real estate agent, they decided to bring in machine learning, build a system that is now viewed as the most accurate estimate of your house value. So if you want to know what your house is worth, not sure if it's in Europe yet, but definitely in the US, you can go to Redfin and it will assess the value of your house. Takes out any bias that's in the system for different areas or things that a real estate agent likes and really showcases what your value is. It has become so accurate now that some banks will even use it in place of an appraisal, which is pretty amazing. Now, all of that, today is International Women's Day. Do you guys all know that? I know most of you guys here are guys, but it's International Women's Day. And so one of the things that I did want to make sure that I talk to you about is the fact that diversity does drive teams that are very innovative, that can help you in these areas. The Redfin example I gave you, the CTO is a woman. Her name is Bridget Fry. She's probably one of the best CTOs I know. Working backwards from the customer on that estimator was really hard. She did an amazing job because she had a diverse team that was working with her. And it's been proven in study after study after study that if you have diversity of thought, doesn't mean just gender, it can be race, could be school. At Amazon, we had this one team, and the whole team came from the same school. So their thought process was the same because they had been trained the same. And we discovered this because that team was not innovating as fast as several other teams that we had. So I just want to make sure that I emphasize today on International Women's Day that diversity does make a difference. It's not just a nice thing to have, it's the right thing to do, and it can very much positively impact your business. So I appreciate your time today. One of the interesting things that we also look at here for obsessing over the customer is a lot of people will say, well, that sounds really interesting. I want to do that, but let me study it a little bit more. Or let me think about it a little bit more. Let me take it to 3 more meetings. And what we like to say is don't overanalyze it. It's not going to be perfect, but just get going and get started, making sure you have that customer obsession. Thank you. Any questions that you guys have? You want me to open up for questions, or what do you want me to do? Questions? Any questions you guys have? Yes, sir.
Do I need the microphone?
I think you've got a great voice.
Thank you. So you just mentioned that you guys have just launched Kubernetes Cloud. Can you talk about how you work backward from the customer for that?
Yeah. Yes. Do you want him to repeat, or do you want, okay. I think, did everybody hear that? So we just released Kubernetes for Windows. So it was really interesting. The way we worked backwards on Kubernetes was we had released about 9 months ago Kubernetes for Linux. And so we were debating on, do we need Kubernetes for Windows or not? Even though we have almost twice as many customers running Windows in the cloud as anybody else does, we were wondering, did we really need Kubernetes for Windows, or would people just use Linux? So as we went out there and talked to people, we determined that Windows was required, and Windows in a form that was familiar to a Windows user. So it couldn't look or feel like Linux, had to look and feel like .NET, had to look and feel like what we did in a normal Windows environment. So we actually were originally going to release this at reInvent. When we first released it, our developer customers told us it was still too Linux-like. And so it took us between December and now to just work with the customers primarily on the user interface. Because as you know, Kubernetes doesn't come from us, it comes from another group. So that was kind of our process for working backwards. We just kind of made sure we refined that customer experience.
Was there a particular client that really helped drive that?
Yeah, so we have a set of customers. So we have a CAB, a customer advisory board, but then we also have a set of our Windows customers that we used, but we also used non-Windows on AWS customers as well. Because what we're hoping is with this preview that this will also help customers who aren't currently on the AWS platform, maybe they're running on premises today, to come over. So we really wanted to make sure that we hit both of those audiences. And at least the customers that are using it, that just released this morning, I've already gotten a couple of notes that said that it's right on target. So go out there and try it if you haven't tried it yet.
Any other questions for Sandy? If you all don't have any, I'm going to walk over to Thomas and ask him to come back on stage so that the two of you can have a little conversation. And I'll pass it on to you.
Oh, thanks. I have a question. I have two questions, actually.
Sure.
How do you maintain this once a product is released? Because that sounds basically like a cycle which has to go on and on and on.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we actually have a tool inside of Amazon. It's called a feature request tool. And so if you are talking to your SA and you mention to the SA, wow, this is hard, what that SA does is he or she will go and enter it into the tool. And we collect thousands and thousands and thousands of those requests from our customers to actually rank them, like which of these requests came in the most, to rank those, and then to really evaluate, will this really have the same impact that we anticipated it would have? In addition, before we build it, even though it has like the most votes, we'll actually go out to some of our CAB customers, we'll go out to some non-customers, companies that are thinking about it, and test that idea with them as well. And we
so
expect
you double check it, basically.
Double check it, that's right, yep.
Cool. And what role does the design process play in that? Because many start like with first doing the design and the mock-ups and then caring about technology. So how important is the UI and refining that before you actually use the code?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So for us, that customer experience is so important that when we do the first press release that we talked about, and that FAQ, that frequently asked set of questions, in that first set of questions, we actually mock up what we think it'll look like. So that's actually before we write any code or before we've really done a thorough design document. We follow a lot of the IDEO design methodology, and so we'll just do quick mock-ups. We'll review that with our team, and then we'll take that out and we'll review it with customers as well to get their feedback.
Okay. So is it safe to say that you basically skip this whole persona phase and just rather talk to real people? I mean...
We actually do personas because we're very, one of the questions that we talked about was, who is the customer? And we really dive into this, like is it, You can't just say it's an administrator. Is it a DBA? Is it not just a DBA? Is it a SQL DBA or an Oracle DBA? Or is it a .NET? What is the type of customer that you're really working with? So we don't skip the persona side. We still use the personas in that frequently asked set of questions. That document, you guys, is really thick. It takes us a long time to write that frequently asked set of questions.
How many percent is it from the design phase? Just
how much is the percent?
yeah, percent. How much time do you spend in that of the overall process?
So if you read, Jeff Bezos does his annual letters. I think that everybody tells me they read those. He would say that it takes at least 15 different rounds of reviews, which means it can take a lot of time because that first round, you may have to start again, or maybe you start again on the 5th round, or maybe you start again on the 10th round, and you have to go through that whole process. For him, the process is as important because it gets buy-in from all the groups, and then it also helps some of the customers as well. I got a really great story. So we were developing a particular service. It was one of my first services that I was releasing. It's called License Manager. And License Manager allows you to manage your licenses not just in the cloud, but also on premises. So you can look at your licenses across the board. One of the things that we kept hearing from our customers was that they wanted to be able to not just understand that they were going to go over the number of licenses, but also stop it. So if you had said, I've got 60 Oracle licenses, you don't want that 61st to be launched. Now today, there's no other license manager product that does that. So we actually found a way to do that working through our control plane. We worked with lots of customers. We were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because this is really hard. And they said yes. So when we announced it, I decided to have the development team stand up. So I thought they had worked so hard on getting that feature. I only had 13 people on the development team for that particular service. But when I asked in the crowd for that team to stand up, hundreds of people stood up. I was like, wow. And my boss is looking at me like, I thought you only had 13 people developing that service. You know who the other people were that stood up? All of those customers. They all felt so invested in that service that they all stood up because they all felt like they were part of the team. That was an incredible moment for me of realizing how closely you really can work with your customers to deliver something that's new and impactful.
Wow, cool. I've got a last question for you, and this is about once you built your product and you found your perfect market fit, how do you manage pricing? And what kind of part comes in? How do you value your service? How do you do that? Is there a process for you?
Yeah, this is a really tough process is how we do our pricing. So for instance, on that license manager product I just talked about, even though customers highly valued it and said that they would pay a lot for it, we decided to offer it for free. So why did we do that? We really considered it a tool to help our customers manage their business, and in the end, we didn't feel like that was something we should be charging our customers for. We spend a lot of time doing our price analysis. We look at and talk to our customers. We look at other services that we have out there. We typically don't do competitive analysis. We obsess over our customers, and we really gain insight from our customers. That's why we've done over 66 different price cuts over the life of AWS, is because we want to make sure we're delivering the right value back for our customers. So it is a big process. A lot of it's confidential, so I can't share all of it, but it is a process that we take very seriously. Every pricing decision right now that we make goes up to our CEO.
Wow, okay. Any more questions from the audience?
Anything I didn't answer? Yes?
Oh, here we go.
So for a potential customer, how difficult could AWS be to transfer an existing system over?
So you mean you're running on premises and you want to migrate over?
Yeah.
I can make that really easy for you. Truly, we've been building a lot of migration tools to try to make sure that it's as easy as possible. We have a methodology to help you migrate. One of the new services we just announced at our reInvent conference, which was in November, is an Azure to AWS migration. It's one of our most used tools right now, which I love. And it is most loved and most used because we're seeing customers saving 35 to 40%, and our reliability is so much better. Customers really want that reliability and that security. So if you want help migrating, we can help migrate you. I will tell you it'll take time to plan it out, but if you plan it out, it's actually not as hard as it seems, and really well worth it.
Do it, it's worth it. We did it as well. Well, I think that if there are any more further questions, maybe you can ask also in person. Thank you very much for coming. That was
Thank you
one of the
so
most
much.
insightful talks in a while.
Thank you.
Give a big round of applause to Sandy, please.